this is not the first time I've heard Izham. I had an opportunity to hear him in another conference recently, and it was very sad to hear players not getting paid. You know, imagine for us lawyers not getting paid. Actually, most lawyers don't get paid by clients anyway, but when you don't get paid for so many months, you get pissed off. And actually, the key, one interesting word used by Izham, I hope most lawyers will pick up, is the fact that professional players cannot get industrial rights. Very interesting. So again, the myth. Some lawyers, they think, oh, you know, it's just employment law. You know, it's not. It's a lot more than that. So we've come to an end, and while the day is long, it's been long, and the necks are tired, and I can see most of you have perfected the art of sleeping with your eyes wide open. I would like to see whether anybody would ask any questions. Perhaps for Hassan about AFC, or with Lazarus on FAM. Now, can I explain why we invited footballers? Yes, Yim is a massive Manchester United fan, and as you know, I repeat, I'm an Everton fan. In fact, the two gentlemen here are a massive Liverpool fan, and I hope Hassan is also an Everton fan, which will make us 5. But the reason is that the fact remains is, and this is the blunt truth, football in Malaysia is one of the more organized sports. The other one is badminton and squash, and to some extent even hockey and bowling. But we invited them because you can hear the effort that they put in to get things structured. So, can I invite some questions before we all go for a good teh tarik and some kuih muih for our networking later? Any question? Can you lie? I thought I saw your hand. Do you want to ask something? Oh yes. All yours.
Hi, my question is specifically to Izham. Would you say that the players and athletes' rights representations would be better secured if they had adequate access to, let's say, players' agents, for example? I mean, it's a contentious issue because in Europe you have athletes and players' bargaining powers go on the upper hand with people like Jorge Mendes or so. Just any comments on this?
Izham is Jan from KLRCA. All yours.
Well, first of all, the agent regulation has been amended by FIFA. There's no more agents licensing regulations. They have replaced that with the intermediary law, workings with intermediary, which loosen up the regulations of agency, and we hope that there are more agents or people that can represent the players. We feel that representatives, not agents, representatives or intermediaries are needed in football because of their position. They can educate the players and get the players organized. But we have to balance with the economic rights of the players, where most of the agents have only one thing in mind, which is money. And most of the time, the way agent works is based on the commission that they get from the transaction, which is bad in terms of the players' representation, because they will only present at the point of transaction. And throughout the year, the agents will be non-existent. They will only come back when the players want to move. And this is the thing that the intermediary law and also with the work with FAM is going to change, where there must be a proximity between the player and the agent must be represented in the contract, whereby the current employment contract in FAM, there are no need to put the agent's name in the contract. But now it is a requirement to put a player agent or the representative of the player in the contract in the case of any dispute. So to answer your question, it's very important to have a good players representative or intermediary, provided that they follow all the regulations and follow the best practices of good governance in football. But most importantly, they have to have in mind is they have to protect the player first, not them.
Good answer. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Mahendra from Bustaman. I've got actually 3 questions, but I'm trying to concise it as easy as possible for all 3 panelists. To Hassan, I noticed in your global plan earlier in respect of match fixing, I noticed North America is not blemished at all. Is that because sports betting there is licensed and regulated, or is it because that is not a legal business elsewhere? For Lazarus, just a quick question. Do you believe that criminalizing sports crimes, for example, integrity-based challenges, would be a good idea for Malaysia? And lastly, to Izham, I realized in your slides, one of it was for lack of education for some of the sportsmen, especially footballers. Now, would you say a sports academy, or even to an extent, an ambitious project of, say, a sports university where sponsorship in respect of academics and sports working hand in hand to make the individual an all-rounded sportsman would be helpful?
Hassan, all yours? Good question, man.
Yeah, look, there was a similar question from the front, primarily because that diagram was for allegations of match fixing in open source in the year 2013 only. That does not say that there have not been cases in America. But just because in 2013 the Interpol study did not pick anything that was in open source media that referred to match fixing in that country. Obviously, having regulated bookmakers, or having gambling regulated really helps. If our member association, for example, Australia, one of our members, they've signed agreements with regulated bookmakers, which share information with them, so it's easy for them to find out if any of the players or officials are actually putting money on football matches. So it certainly helps. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Hassan. Lazarus?
Yeah. Criminalizing certain behaviors in sports. Well, some of the associations, even our region, Singapore has done that in relation to match fixing in sports. Now, obviously, we are taking the same approach, but not only in relation to match manipulation. I'll give you a very good example. Behavior of our football fans. Now, do you think their behavior warrants a criminal sanction? Do you think it's a violation of national law? Lighting up flares, for example. Use of abusive languages. Shooting of rockets. Do you think our national law criminalizes those misconduct? I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. But in terms of imposing certain specific sanctions against the perpetrators, does our national law cover that? For example, in UK, UK has passed national laws which can ban fans from entering the stadium. So are we going to do that? Are we moving towards that direction? For your information, FAM is moving towards that direction. Criminalize behaviors of fans. We have written an official letter to the Ministry of Home Affairs, where we are seeking audience with the ministry to sit down and to come up with a national action policy. Because apart from match manipulation, which is very isolated, behavior of fans is the biggest threat for me, at least, in relation to football in Malaysia, because the image of country is being tarnished. So, to answer your question, should we? Yes, we should. Thank you.
Well said. Izham, what your sports university?
Speaking about education of the players and the possible implementation or establishment of the sports university, of course, we the players welcome the kind of ideas. But in advocating players' education or fighting for players' education, we shouldn't work in isolation. Just by building a university or building an institution to educate the sportsmen is not enough. It is about building the ecosystem where all the stakeholders should play an equally important role to better educate ourselves. Because it is no point if only the players are educated. If the administrators are still behaving the same way, if the fans are still behaving the same way, we are not going anywhere. We should have a halo effect where everyone should be improving ourselves to better educate ourselves, to have an ecosystem which is more education for the ecosystem. And I would welcome any effort to have that kind of a university, a sports university, but greater importance should be on improving the ecosystem.
Okay, well said. Yes, Peter Douglas.
Hi, Peter
Last
from,
question.
Yeah, from Malaysian Bar. This question is targeted to all the panelists. There was a case 2 years ago where I think about 8 players were banned from a state youth team for being found guilty of match fixing. Now, one of the players I know through a friend. His excuse, if you can call it an excuse, was that he was threatened if he did not take the bribe, his family members would be harmed, and he truly believed in what he was told. I believe he gave FAM that excuse. Still, he was banned. Now, the questions are, one, how rife? Sorry, I should add that he pinpointed who these people were who were threatening him. They were sponsors, financiers of the team. And he said he had no choice. And they had taken over control of management. These are very serious allegations. Questions are, how rife is such pressure from sponsors or financiers? And secondly, if it is rife, what is the solution or resolution to this?
Can I first invite Lazarus first, being a FAM case, and then I'll invite Izham, and then let Hassan give a Asian view.
Now, as I've mentioned earlier during my presentation, we are not the enforcement agency. Okay, we are a sporting industry where we have certain limitations. Now, regarding the case that you've just mentioned, that was 2 years ago, quite a number of players were involved, sanctions were imposed, life bans, for example, some fixed term bans. In regards to threat, now that's the usual case where most players or officials would actually plead threat of violence. Now again, what can we do? Do we take this evidence? Yes, we do take those evidence because we have certain procedures in place. We have certain standard, for example, on to a comfortable satisfaction. It's not beyond reasonable doubt, it's not on a balance of probability. We work on certain procedures. These are mitigating factors